Today in our 2018 Jeep Cherokee, we're going to be installing Roadmaster's EZ5 baseplate kit, part number RM-521446-5.
This baseplate from Roadmaster is going to allow your Cherokee to be pulled behind your RV without the hassle of a trailer or dolly. The baseplate's permanently installed, so it's always there when you need it. For an additional layer of security, there's a safety chain loop located on the side here next to your hookup for your tow bars. It hides nicely underneath the bumper, just barely poking out, and it fits pretty flush with your bumper, so you don't have to worry about it sticking out too far and having to keep that in your mind when driving the vehicle, worrying about bumping into something. When you're ready to use your tow bars, just slide in the tow bar adapter and turn it to lock it into place. This tow bar adapter makes it real easy to hook up your Roadmaster tow bars. They just slide in, the pin slides through, and it locks right into place. And what I really like about this baseplate kit in comparison to others, such as the one from Blue Ox, there's no trimming required. On the Blue Ox, you have to trim this bracket here. This one just bolts right up, only having to remove that one stud and knocking this flat here. And if you already have a set of Blue Ox tow bars, but you don't want to go through the trouble of trimming to install a Blue Ox baseplate, you can get an adapter and go with this much easier installation. We'll begin our installation at the front of the vehicle by removing the front fascia. We'll start by removing 12 push pins from the top panel here. You can do this with either a trim panel removal tool or a flat bladed screwdriver. Get underneath the upper cap, give a little twist, just work that up. Once the center's been worked up, you can give it a jiggle and pull it right out. Then pop out the piece below that. You'll repeat that for the remaining pins. Once you remove the last pin, just pull your cover up, lift it out of the way, and set it aside. After you've removed your top cover, we're going to remove 3 bolts from each side of the fascia. There'll be 2 located on the back side towards your engine compartment, and 1 located further down on the side of it. And you'll repeat the same thing on the other side. Next, remove the 3 bolts located on your fender liner in these locations with an 8mm head socket. To make it easier to get them out, it's best if you turn your wheel fully in one direction. And repeat that same process on the other side. Now remove the 7 bolts holding on your skid plate. You can do this using a 13mm socket. As you can see, these 2 front bolts are slotted, so you can leave them partially in to hold it in place while you take out the back side, and then you can just slip it off. Then set it aside. Now remove the 4 silver colored bolts on the bottom using a 10mm socket. Now remove the plastic rivets located on each side. There's one located on your driver's side and your passenger side, right where the bumper meets the fender liner. You'll need to drill these out using a small drill bit. Then you repeat the same process on the other side. There's now 1 more bolt behind our fender liner holding this on. Starting at the bottom where you remove that plastic rivet, pull out on your fender liner so we can access that bolt. You'll remove the bolt located right here with a 10mm head socket. And repeat that same process on the other side. On your driver's side behind the fender liner, you'll also want to remove the connector with the purple backing. Just push in on the tab and pull outward. Once you've got that off, we'll need to remove the tab here from the fender liner. This can be done with a pair of needle nose pliers or a trim panel removal tool. We can now remove our fascia. We've got an extra pair of hands to help us pull outward and forward on our fascia to remove it. Then just pull your fascia outward, check for any wiring that you may need to disconnect, and set it aside. Now we're going to remove the steel plate located in the lower corners. Remove the small nut with a 10mm socket and the 3 bolts with a 15mm socket. We can set these aside, but we will not be putting them back on. We're not going to remove the tow hooks on both sides. Start with the large nut on the back side of the tow hook using a 30mm socket. Now remove the 2 bolts located at the front by the hook with a 16mm socket. Make sure to hold on to the hook after you remove the last bolt, as it may fall out of there. And just pull it out and set it aside, and repeat the same process on the other side to remove your steel plate and your tow hook. We'll now need to cut the stud off on the front where we removed our steel plate and bend the tab up with a hammer. And repeat the same process on the other side. Then we'll use a little bit of clear coat just to prevent rust and corrosion where we cut our studs off. We'll now take our spacer plate and install it. Before you put it on, take the shorter bolts and put them downward on the holes going front and back. We'll then put the plate right where we removed our tow hook using the longer bolts in the kit. Before you put it on, you'll want to slide a lock washer onto the bolt, followed by a flat washer. Put a little bit of red Loctite on each of the bolts before you insert them. Put the spacer up and slide 1 bolt in towards the inside of the vehicle. This is the one towards the center. And we're going to go ahead and run this one down. To help keep it aligned, I like to just stick this bolt in. We're not going to thread it, we're just using it to hold it in line. And then we'll tighten it down using a 17mm socket. After you snug this bolt down, we'll have to torque it because you can't torque it once we put the rest of our base plate on. So we used that 1 bolt that we had in there to make sure everything was going to line up properly. And now we can torque it. Use the specifications in your instructions to ensure proper torque. Then the bolts that we had removed from our steel plate here, the 15mm head bolts, we'll apply a little bit of Loctite to each of those, as we'll be using these to install our base plate. We'll also be putting some on here, as we're going to be using red Loctite on all the hardware holding on our base plate. Now we'll align our base plate bracket up, making sure both the bolts that we had dropped down go through the holes in the base plate, and then start a bolt on the back side of the base plate using the hardware that we had removed from it. Once you've got one started, we can then install the other 2. Now snug down all your hardware, making sure that the plate and everything lines up flush. Now take the larger lock washers and nuts and thread them onto the bolts that we fed down earlier. And then snug those down using a 19mm socket. Now we'll repeat this same process on the other side. And once we've completed that, we'll torque all of the remaining hardware using the specifications in the instructions. We'll now need to trim our fascia to make room for our base plate to poke through. I've gone ahead and made some marks here, outlining where I'm going to be trimming. Go ahead and trim that now, and you can see what it looks like when it's done. And this is what it's going to look like once you remove the area outlined in your instructions. You'll do this on both sides. And once you've trimmed out your fascia per your instructions, you can go ahead and reinstall it, reversing the procedures we used to remove it. Now if you have other components you're going to be installing besides your base plate, such as your braking system for flat towing, your brake light relays, diodes, and all that other equipment, before putting it back on, this is a good time to install those components while you've got more room to access all the wiring. So in summary, to get our 2018 Jeep Cherokee towed behind our RV, we used
Roadmaster's Easy 5 baseplate, Roadmaster's tow bar wiring kit, SMI's stay-and-play duo braking system, Roadmaster's brake light relay, Roadmaster's Falcon tow bars, Roadmaster safety chains, and Roadmaster's high-low adapter. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's Easy 5 baseplate kit on our 2018 Jeep Cherokee.
Thanks for watching. Click the link in our description below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com. And leave us a comment if you have any questions.